How free trade is destroying America. I say this with all sincerity as a former libertarian, Austrian, if not an anarchist, to be perfectly honest with you. And the last 6 months or so, I've been slowly seeing how wrong I was and how evil what happened to free trade turned out to be. And it's got to be rectified. All right, so let's talk about this. In 1945, all right, compare that to 2025. So talk about an 80-year time frame. We haven't had any tariffs of any significance. I mean, Reagan had a couple, he had the tariff against Japan semiconductors, but very limited tariffs. We've been very, quote, free, unquote. What has happened to our economy as a whole? Oh, the GDP has grown. That's what I hear. Oh, GDP, we got more stuff. Yeah, that's what I hear. I hear this all the time. In fact, I just listened to a free trade expert destroys the tariff crowd. I was listening to this guy. I was like, this is all you got? I mean, literally, I was listening to it thinking, maybe, again, the problem is when you're of a learned persuasion, you don't hear the other side. So you only hear one side. And what happens is when you hear the other side, you're blown away. I said, I never knew that. I never knew we had Dingley, McKinley tariffs, Fordy, and I forgot his last name, the tariff. I never knew any of this. I just knew about Smoot-Hawley, and thus tariffs back is Smoot-Hawley. I never knew about these other tariffs. All right, so let's go back to 1945. Median household income has grown by about 1.31% above inflation. All right, that's not bad. I mean, inflation is 3. We're growing up by 4.31. All right. The formation of the household, though, has gone from about 80% married couples to less than 50% today. 47% of households in the United States are married. All right. So we had 80% were married back then, 47% today, almost a half less. All right, that's not good. Everyone knows a married family is a more stable family. On top of that, the percentage of dual income households has gone up at least 3 times, at least, if not more. The percentage of married households with dual income has gone to 60% of married households are now dual income. All right, so we have fewer and fewer married households, and you have significantly more married households with both husband and wife working. On top of that, you have a lot of non-family households where both people are working, all right? And then you have, obviously, significant increase in single-family households as well. So what this means is we're breaking up the family. Unequivocally, we're breaking up the family. Because we have less married couples. More and more married couples have more dual income providers. All right. Why is that happening? Because they can't afford a house. Well, it used to be basically I'll say 1.5 to 1 ratio of the cost of a house versus median wages is now at least 5 to 1 as of 2023, and I think it's even got worse now in 2025. So it used to be a 1 year's salary, essentially, in the 1940s would buy you a house. And you can say, well, that's after the war. I get it. All right, we can always make a thing, but still, the ratio has gone up significantly to about 5 to 1 median wages. And this is just men's wages, by the way, median men's wages, not even including female wages, because females were so a small portion back then, they weren't even included in the data. But the median men's wages has gone about 1.1% above inflation over the last 80 years, where the price of a house has gone up 3 times that over the last 80 years. And that's what really hit me. I was defending, and then somehow I just said, wait, so the houses are that much more than wages? I said, oh man, they were. That really went me down the rabbit hole. And I said, what the hell? All right, so what happens now on top of that? What happens if you have 2 earners in your household? What are you going to be eating? You're going to be eating a lot more crap. You're going to be eating a lot more out. You're going to eat out a lot more, which is crap. You're going to be importing stuff from other countries, a lot of it which is crap. You're not getting a lot of homemade. Your wife isn't making food. You're going to be buying a lot of takeout. I know that for a fact. A lot of it which is just made of horrible ingredients. Absolutely. You're going to be buying a lot of import processed food, which is made with horrible ingredients. 100%. You're stressed out because you're not sleeping as much because both you guys have jobs and you're both stressed out. Look, my wife works now. I work now too. But we didn't work. My wife did not work when the kids were in their more formative years. So we were blessed in that regard and lucky. But my wife's got her stress. I got my stress, I mean, just a fact. Thankfully, we've reached a certain economic threshold where, we're not just, we know for a fact, finance is what causes more divorces than anything else. I mean, Jesus talks about money more than anything else. Money's a big deal. So you got dual income earners having a hard time making ends meet. They can't buy a house. They're eating a lot of crap. They got under more and more stress. What does that do to the family unit? Well, it makes them divorce easier. How do we know that? Because we can see we have less married households. All for the freaking dollar of globalization, dude. It's such a freaking scam. We got more cheap goods. Yeah, 100%. We're importing cheap stuff. And I love CO2, but that's certainly the cause of CO2 isn't helped by imports. I'll tell you that. It's not being imported on freaking sailboats. That's for damn sure. So you got more and more cheap stuff being imported. That's cheap stuff that it's not healthy for you, for sure. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you got a better TV. You got a better computer, I grant you, 100%. You got less and less jobs in the hinterlands of the United States, less and less valuable jobs in the hinterlands of the United States. More and more people being priced out of the market for a home, more and more families being divorced, less family formations, less children being born, heavier and heavier people getting diabetes, getting hypertension, and we're going to feed them Ozempic to deal with that. It's a freaking... I'm not even getting into the fact we can't build our own steel, we don't build our own ships, we don't build our own pharmaceuticals. I'm just getting into the basic how globalization is destroying the American family, and it's going to destroy America. And then this guy from Reason Magazine, well, now every country goes from a agricultural to manufacturing to a service country. I was like, yeah, I'm just curious, guy. Of all these countries you cite that are gone to a service country, how many are still around and doing well? Because again, we know for a fact in the United Kingdom, their GDP is less than that of per capita is less than that of Mississippi. Remember, UK was the largest economy by far in the late 1800s. They kept their free trade. We took a tariff perspective. We overshot them. And the UK has never been the same since. And now their GDP is less than that of Mississippi. Now, we can argue, that I think is a good argument, is GDP really a measure of economic wealth, economic stability? And I don't think it is. But, that's what we're going to use, GDP per capita. And so you can just make that argument, oh my goodness, you know what I'm saying? We're in a service economy, which is great. The problem is we've never seen an economy sustain itself in any strength being a service economy. It's a shirt sleeve to shirt sleeve generation, dude. And 3 generations, excuse me. You know what I'm saying? You were working your tail off as wearing shirt sleeves. You built a company for your son. Your son freaking was wearing long sleeves and was cufflinks and whatnot. He ruined the company. Now we're back to shirt sleeves in the 3rd generation. That's what's going on here. A service economy is not long for this world because it has to produce stuff. It has to make things. Don't you know our exports are through the roof? Yeah, when it comes to Amazon stuff and freaking Netflix, but that's not good enough. Yeah, we are exporting airplanes, I grant you. But the reason we're still exporting airplanes is we have people who can make these airplanes. You cannot be a service economy and sustain yourself for too long, unless you have just massive immigration. You just can't, because you have to make stuff. So this guy's like, oh, they're flipping burgers, they got more jobs. And I was like, he's like, why? I was like, that's not a good job. I mean, it's a good job if you're starting out. It's not a bad job. There's honor in labor, but the idea that a burger flipping and haircut, he goes, we're all going to be cutting hair and flipping burgers in a service economy. And he goes, well, we're not. But I was like, well, we kind of are. We kind of are. We're a lot of waiters and waitresses. Nothing wrong with all these jobs, but these aren't jobs that are manufacturing-based jobs in the middle America. And anyway, remember, the majority of people don't have a college degree. You see what I'm saying? So the loss of manufacturing has hurt those people the most. So now they're going to service jobs, cutting hair and doing all that. There's nothing wrong with that. But they were getting high jobs, even if they're laborious and hard. They were getting good jobs, and now they're just not. And families are breaking up. Price of houses going through the roof. Median incomes aren't keeping up. People are getting fat, heavy. It's just this is globalization, man. It just is. Anyway. It's just sad. God bless. Love your thoughts.